I did not do well in high school academically. I was completely checked out. My life at the time was Indian classical music, which is the great passion of my life. But when I got into undergrad, I literally felt that university was invented for me. It completely brought me to life because I was like, oh, these are things that actually matter. Schopenhauer had said, talent hits a target nobody else can hit. Genius hits a target that nobody else can see.
My dear AARSHIN Karande, welcome to the show, my brother.
How are you, Liz? Yes, great to be here. Honored to be asked to be here. We've learned a lot together. And we were speaking the other day about how we started this degree before ChatGPT, I think 3. What?
Yeah.
And now that version, OpenAI has stopped supporting, I believe. It's been such an interesting time to just study AI, consider ethics and philosophy and morals, and just intellectually interesting. And then there's the social aspect where we have a great group of people.
Yeah, man. I miss you guys so much.
And you're one person whom, we have these socials after class, during tea break, before class, during lunch, when we're in term.
Yeah.
And there's always like, oh, I need to talk to this person about this thing, or I have to talk to this person about. And it's like we just don't get the chance to do that. So this is a nice one-on-one with you here. So I'm very happy.
My friend, I'm honored to have you here.
Oh, thank
you. You as a friend to talk. So, quick question: did you go to Jack Gelato? Did you manage to go to Jack Gelato?
I did. So I was partial to Aromi. This time I had Aromi and it was good, but it wasn't the usual great that I would like.
Oh, okay.
But I did try Jack's. I got the Manuka honey and milk.
Okay. It had some interesting.
Yeah. And there's a seasonal mango. And as a person from the Indian subcontinent by heritage and ethnicity, I'm very partial to mangoes, especially in the April, May, June timeframe because it's in season.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's
like one of the great features of the subcontinent is its mango culture. And so I tried both and they were just stellar. So thanks for the suggestion. It very much passes. So.
Yeah, man. I've been talking to them, to Jack Gelato.
Oh.
Imagine if they would sponsor the show. We could do a tasting. Or
you could do like a mindful mulled wine flavor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Man, so starting to talk a bit about AI and taking the opportunity of what you mentioned, do you think we were lucky or unlucky to start, not start because we were already interested and involved in some ways, but studying those 2 years in that moment? What do you think about that?
Of all the times to study AI, I think our cohort hit the sweet spot because we got to study or at least enter this field when the old idea of AI, pre-GPTs, pre-neural networks, kind of that new paradigm of thinking.
Yeah.
The old idea of AI was basically just elevated business intelligence, which is, just big data. How do you automate big data in a way that's useful? And that's very much AI now. But about a few months after we started, the whole consumer aspect of LLMs just came to the forefront. And seeing kind of the narrative around AI change, seeing the social cultures around AI change, where it was this very kind of almost sci-fi thing that was unreachable and only the foremost minds, foremost mathematicians, foremost technologists could really think and talk authoritatively about it.
Yeah.
Where now I know people who are decades older than me that have personal relationships with Claude and ChatGPT and these things. Similar to how
the world is a whole world.
And similar to how one would have a relationship with Angry Birds or Farmville or one of those things. We have created a completely new cultures around this consumable AI. But there's also the enterprise level. There's the big business, big tech level of just trying to get as much technological force to process these technologies in a way where they can come up with brand new, interesting things. So it's become so diverse, so complex, so broad, and yet very approachable. So I think we studied it at a very great time.
We got lucky, I think, too. Yeah. And it was rough. It was like getting hit by waves because the amount of papers that we read per month, it was brutal.
And to that point, the fatigue of just keeping up with not only the news, but also really getting specific about what is new, what is reasonably interesting, and what is just hype and what is alarmism. I remember we would have days in lectures where we would have one scholar from the social sciences talking about, oh, this is just the expansion of colonialism into exploiting technology to control people, control behavior, and just extract the riches of not only people's behavior, but the resources that go behind sustaining those systems. And then on the other side, we hear technologists saying, look at how many things I can do with this data set. So that,
Like I can improve the world.
that breadth is there. Now you can say both are lofty, both are not realistic, both are idealistic in their own respects. But it just goes to show how immensely challenging it is to come up with a unified AI story. I would argue it's almost as challenging as a unified theory of everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, like, as multidisciplinary, as multi-contextual as it gets, right? Yeah. We were talking the other day about how philosophy engages with all this. And you told me a bit about your interest in knowledge and knowledge creation and how it led you to your dissertation.
Yeah.
And you worked around Wikipedia a little, right? Could you tell me a bit about that and refresh my memory on all this?
Sure. First, I have to refresh my memory because it's been a few months.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. When you told me you wanted to talk about dissertation, of course, I put myself in your shoes and I'm like, man, what could I say? But man, we gotta, we spent a lot of energy and time. I don't know how it was for you, but it was probably the best, thing I have written in my life.
Yeah.
For you too.
The best written, I don't know.
Okay.
Because, the dissertation is always something where you complain about the word count. If only I had 5,000 more words, 3,000 more words, then it could be that kind of a thing. I would say it's probably the most important thing I've written.
Most important, but not the best.
Not the best just in terms of quality. And I tend to enjoy poetics more. I tend to enjoy...
Yeah, and we didn't get any space for that.
Academic work is not the space for poetics. Yeah, I was speaking with our classmate Sen about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Works at Zscaler. But returning to my dissertation. So my journey to getting to this program was very unconventional. So I did not do well in high school academically. I was completely checked out. My life at the time was Indian classical music, which is the great passion of my life. I wanted to be the next big great thing in that field.
Wow.
And I felt very lost in my high school time because I just didn't find, I think, youthful things interesting. In many ways, I still don't. But when I got into undergrad, I went to a very kind of locally focused university, which was the Bothell branch of the University of Washington, which is kind of its liberal arts multidisciplinary wing of the university. And you had all these kind of kooky, interesting, research-focused professors who would kind of go there to do what they wanted to do.
Amazing.
Because they didn't want to have I literally felt that university was invented for me. So in the first quarter, we had... And what was cool at the time is the university had more lecturers than it did professors. So they had people who have industrial practical experience doing academic teaching rather than just teaching 101, 102, 103.
I see.
Sort of in courses like business as innovation, entrepreneurship, and life. And I took one course with one of our media studies professor who is a German.
Your undergrad was in media studies, right?
You all know I was in media studies, right? In media, and a minor in consciousness studies. So that's where the philosophy stuff comes in.
Nice, yeah. Because you have a taste for Freud. You like
very much.
Yeah.
So one of the classes I took was Max Nietzsche Freud. So it was about looking at these three philosophers and how they articulate text, how they articulate media, and their kind of epistemologies and maps of reality and life, and how do we look at how the story of society, how the story of humanity and politics changes through them, from the kind of materialism of Marx to the criticality, for lack of a better word, of Nietzsche, and then Freud, perspectivism of Nietzsche, perhaps, very much so, and then Freud's kind of impress on psychological reality, complexity, motivations, and all of that. So that's barely a century's time, and look at how much the map of reality changed. So all that to say, undergrad just completely brought me to life, because I was like, oh, these are things that actually matter. These are, what does it mean to lead a life in business and industry, be meaningful, but also create value and not kind of just seek greed, as it is virtuously kind of propped up to be in most capitalist societies. And then in my second year of undergrad, I took to consciousness studies, which was our professor, Kate Noble. She has a psychology background, but she was interested in having the science department really take seriously philosophical and empirical questions about what does consciousness mean. It very much challenges premises around scientific materialism, which is this idea, this framework that all of reality can be collapsed into energy and matter. And there's a lot of thinking in consciousness studies and quantum physics around that consciousness kind of has this ambiguous role with matter and energy. I don't want to get into that because I'm not so
Me neither.
firstly qualified to
But I
talk
find
about
it
that.
fascinating still.
Yeah, and I love consuming that thinking in that world, and also because I'm ancestrally from the Indian subcontinent. We sympathize with this kind of non-dualistic approach to questions of reality, questions of beingness, questions of psychology.
Is this philosophically or religiously or?
A little bit of both, but my family is not so religious.
I see.
For a variety of reasons.
Okay.
A central reason being we are Goans, so we had to endure the Goan Inquisition and multiple imperialisms. So we kind of lost affinity for rituals, which exposed our affiliation.
Could you explain this a minute? I'm sorry, because I have.
Oh, no, sure.
I'm sorry, because this is new for me.
Of course.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So, again, this is one of the challenges of having Indian ancestry is the kind of question of mythology versus history gets blended. Because we have been imperialized by various civilizations, various conquerors, for lack of a better word. The actual data, narratives, and documented and available documentation about the histories is not readily available because it's been destroyed. So, for example, for maybe between 1,000 to 1,500 years, my ancestors came from the Goa region, which is the west coast of India, one of the great port areas of the subcontinent that traded with Africa and Arabia for centuries and centuries. Wow. For Romans, there are Roman coins they find in archaeological digs and stuff like that. So that to say, the Portuguese came and they outlawed languages and religion, and they destroyed all the temples.
Wow.
And then
in that region.
So
because it's so big.
And some 100 or so temples that got demolished. And there are stories about the statues and the deity idols of those temples got crossed over to the river, brought to the north, and there's a whole story about that. So all that to say, there was a kind of loss of culture, loss of religion, loss of, identity and all that associated with our ethnic group and our communities. But there is also this feature of tenacity and perseverance and all of that. So,
like the resilience
to deal with imperialism and all that. And because we come from an upper caste family, we got the benefits also of imperialism, where we were encouraged to study English and study in the Christian institutions that wanted to Christianize.
That's familiar.
Yeah,
in Mexico.
So it's like it's one of those algorithms that existed before the computing algorithm.
Yeah, it just go smash. Install a new religion, then kind of head out or stay.
Yeah, I did my first master's at the London School of Economics, and that is at the Aldwych in central London.
And so it wasn't not an MST, and a Master of Science, yes. MSc, Master of Science.
And it's interesting where if you look at just that maybe 1.5 mile squared area, the LSE, and then you have Lincoln's Inn, and then you have Temple Inn. Gandhi and Jinnah was there. Okay. And then Ambedkar, who wrote the Indian Constitution, is studied at LSE. And you think about just in the now.
UCL as well, right?
I may not remember that. I know
but it's University of London.
Yes.
They're both.
But at the Temple Inn is where he did his barrister.
I see. Tough. Okay.
And just in that 1.5 squared area, the fate of the subcontinent was kind of decided, right? If you think about what these institutions did for thinking around independence and revolution and political science and all. So why did I mention?
But independence from the British.
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering about your heritage.
Yeah, on your yes. So Goa, because it was a Portuguese colony up until after Indian independence, there is this question of where does it belong. And my grandfather, paternal grandfather, was born in Goa, and they held a referendum to actually decide whether it would belong to the Republic of India or would go back to Portugal or something like that. You can look it up on Wikipedia. But my father remembers that my grandfather was not allowed to vote in that because it was the Republic of Indian citizens who were supposed to vote on that.
Okay.
So it wasn't part of it. So it was just an interesting example of, we tend to think of India as a very homogenous place, but it's as diverse, if not more diverse, than what we consider as Europe. And there's so many conflicting and contradictory histories, conflicting histories, and experiences of imperialism all over.
Wow, so many dialects, I imagine. Like,
oh man, you die very. Yeah. So, like for instance, I say that I'm going, but if I am in the most populous state, I believe it's called Maharashtra, which is the west of India, where capital is Bombay, or Mumbai as it's known now. That culture is what our people are approximate to, because we're kind of like a cultural and ethnic minority, but we're culturally kind of close to that.
Yes.
So it's one of those.
How did they manage to stay together for all these years? I mean, they haven't, but yeah, no, as a unit, it still is a unit.
It's a great question. I don't know, but I remember I did a thing where I was so interested in questions of ancestry and belonging and history that I actually took my family members back to our original ancestral village in the Goa, South Maharashtra region after 100 years. That's just because of my curiosity. I felt some need to go there.
So, but you were born not in Seattle, in LA.
LA.
You were born in LA.
In Hollywood. No, I was born in Downey, California.
So did your parents move there from India, or they were born also in the US?
No, they were born in Bombay.
In Bombay?
So my dad got very interested in computing. And he was born in Bombay. His parents moved to Indore, another major city. And then he came back to Bombay because there's a computing course that he wanted to do. He met my mom there and they clicked. But then he applied for this master's degree program at the Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, did his master's there. And then he was tired of the Midwest weather and he was a big Hollywood person. So he decided to go to LA. And then got a job in banking and then slowly moved into the IT side of Hollywood. And so he's seen many, many stars and he remembers.
That's very cool.
Yeah, he remembers seeing Steven Spielberg while he was working on Schindler's List and Jurassic Park.
Oh,
so just like it was for him, it was like, dream come true as it goes in time. And so then my mom and him got married and then she came to settle in LA. And then we were born a few years later. So, yeah, that's...
You enjoy cinema?
I love cinema.
Yeah, I imagine growing up. But sometimes people might end up hating cinema because they're from Hollywood, but you enjoy it?
Well, yeah. No, I do. I try not to be philosophical about my media consumption.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
of course, you studied media studies. Of
course, and my first master's, my dissertation was about how do we use media or how do we consume media to affirm or create our identity? Because especially now with these allegiances to different media forms, right? Being a K-pop person, being this person, right? There's a lot of archetypes, identity things.
Because of the style of movies people watch. Yes. Yeah, there is a good friend of mine, Jared Bauer. He wrote a paper on something around this. I'm gonna ask about it. I'm gonna send it to you. But it was about how identity in general started to come from movies, like around the world.
Yeah.
And I think it was something connected to Jung. I think Carl Jung, type something like that.
Yeah. Very true. And also being of Indian heritage, when India and Pakistan got created, the role that cinema played in imagining, affirming, and creating Indian identity and the identity of the subcontinent was huge. So there's immense film criticism traditions that come from India, because there's a huge, I would argue it is the most interesting and it is the biggest media culture on the planet.
India. Really?
Just by bodies, just by people. If you're talking about dollars, no, because the rupee and the dollar have a huge disparities. Just to give an example of that, when I land in Heathrow, I will, if I'm lazy, I'll take an Uber to wherever I'm headed. And so I usually get somebody from of African heritage or subcontinental heritage as my driver. And so usually it'll be a Nigerian or somebody like that, right? And they will always ask me, where are you from? And I say, I'm born in the US, but my family is from India. And invariably, they all say one thing to me, Shah Rukh Khan, who is like what Tom Cruise is to Hollywood. Really? He is to
Shah Rukh Khan?
Hindi cinema, yes. Oh. He's like the biggest film star.
And he's still active.
Oh, yeah. He's, and yeah, if you are curious about who he is, David Letterman has done an interview with him on Netflix for his show.
For his show? Yeah. He has a show on Netflix now, yeah.
So go and watch that. It'll answer any questions you have. But the media culture of India is just incredible. It's just, like, it borders on religious. Like, there are temples to movie stars and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
And because these people have such an impress on national identity, cultural belonging, and kind of dealing with the political gray areas that the politicians don't want to touch or they exploit. So,
so there's whole new world, man. Yeah, there's Bollywood, but that's a part of it, or that's how they call. Is it an area like a?
No, so Bollywood is like the caricature.
Okay,
Hindi cinema, I imagine. So they don't like the term, but everybody uses it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. But locally, it's not used at all.
No, locally it is used, but some of the hoity-toity people are like that, like, we're Hindi cinema, we're not Stalin.
I see.
Because it's kind of like a, it's a caricature. It's like you're thinking about, of course, the grand costumes and scenes and the vibe music and
but some action films, a lot. Yeah. But I was wondering about horror. Is there good horror films? Have you watched? Because
I'm sure there are, but I am not a horror person.
You're not a horror guy? Yeah.
I'm a peace and all that kind of a phrase.
What's your favorite genre in film?
Great question. I don't know. I tend to, it depends, of course, on my mood and all that stuff. Yeah, I love rom-coms. I love psychological thrillers that are intelligent. Not like to me, like a great film is Seven or Zodiac.
Those are great.
Or Social Network. Shutter Island is fantastic.
Yeah.
Recently, we talked about this the other day. I really like Conclave.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Nolan is too good.
Yeah, he's great, man. He's great.
So yeah, I tend to like the introspective and the psychoanalytic and the films that really try to do something new narratively.
Okay. So, as a horror enthusiast, I would perhaps recommend give it a shot to see Korean horror. Okay, because Korean horror is really psychological, and they do some metaphors and some allegories. They go deep, so it's really intellectual. You might enjoy it. Give it a shot.
Have you seen what's it called? Squid Game?
Yeah.
What did you think?
I like it. Yeah.
Did you see the new season?
Yes, I saw the whole thing. Did you finish the news yet? Yeah, it's still on a cliffhanger. It is difficult to redo something like that and be successful. I don't think it has the same punch as the first one, but it's going, man. It's interesting that To be honest, I was a bit frustrated at the end of the first Squid Game.
Okay.
Because I was expecting something grander to happen. Like, because there is a lot of philosophy in it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? But when they revealed the bad guys, they were idiots. They were, they were not really that smart. Perhaps that's part of the criticism. But I would think that they would have these really interesting arguments to why they're doing it and how it works. But I don't know if there was a lack of writing, or perhaps they just decided to leave it open. How it could be. But the idea of doing this, I think it is interesting.
Sure.
In its own way. What do you think? Do you like?
Yeah, I very much agree with your observations. I think, to your point about it wasn't as satisfying, that kind of thinking. I didn't care so much for the first half of the second season's conclusion. And then I didn't want to just, sit with that conclusion and just, stick it there. I was considering why. And I think that shows did a great job of making, or rather inviting the viewer to think about injustice and how vivid and how visceral they make injustice throughout the series. And you're waiting for some kind of justice to happen, right? You're waiting for the bad guys to lose, the good guys to win, something like that, right? And spoiler alert, it doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
And that
doesn't count as a spoiler. If people haven't seen it, it's like,
But it's interesting to choose that as a filmmaker or as a media person, because that is the reality we deal with. We wait for the bad guy to get their due.
Yeah.
But even in real life, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so are we only looking for that in fictitious media, and why are we not demanding it in our real
lives?
And what was interesting about the second season is you got to, unlike the first season, really go into the mindsets of the people on both sides, right? The people perpetrating the game and the people enduring the game.
Yeah.
You could empathize with everybody.
Right, the employers, right? Like the lady that is struggling to, they're taking lives.
And so that complicates this idea of justice, which is we all are just inheriting this system of society. And we deal with the pain that is familiar rather than doing this revolutionary thing that creates arguably or hopefully a more just system. But we've never seen something more just, right? So it's interesting. It's a very interesting view.
So talking about justice, like in your dissertation, do you go into those topics talking about asymmetries of knowledge and Wikipedia?
That's a great question. What do you mean by asymmetries of knowledge?
Not everyone knows the same things. Like if you get the person that knows a lot about X topic and then you compare it to the rest of the world, there's a massive asymmetry. So there's income inequality and knowledge inequality. And that is really also problematic because if we want to have, for example, a democracy, like the countries that are democratical, knowledge plays a big role. Yeah, because when people vote, like how much do you know, and you're informed, and then to be a citizen, knowledge is also a part of it. Yeah, and Wikipedia became kind of. I love Wikipedia. I just have to,
Oh yeah.
That would be a great sponsor. I don't know if they sponsor anything. But Wikipedia, like. It's one of the best places online, like it gives me hope.
Oh yeah.
It has its flaws. Like, we have to be critical as well.
Yeah.
But I like it.
I very much agree. So I didn't explicitly ask about asymmetries of knowledge, but it certainly came up in the responses with the participants. The idea was, my dissertation asked the question, given AI is here now, what does it mean to click the edit button on a Wikipedia page? Because a human goes through various inquiries, various decisions to click that button and then compose or edit or delete or do whatever they want or whatever they think they should do to make the Wikipedia page what it needs to be. So now if people are talking about let's take AI and have them be Wikipedia editors, it's not happening yet. But at the moment, there are many, many bots that operate on Wikipedia to maintain quality, to police, to organize and all kinds of things. It's a very elaborate technology system, Wikipedia is. And so the question, though, is one day there could be AI Wikipedia editors. So what would that mean for an AI to click edit button? So I was very much interested in, wow, we're going to have automated, or we could have automated agents.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Well, surely there's people, I mean, I'm 100% sure that there's people using ChatGPT-4 to write something and then put it into Wikipedia.
Exactly. So my sample was 10 Wikipedians from around the world of various editing experience time ranges. Some folks who had been editing for a year, some folks who've been editing since the beginning of Wikipedia.
Wow.
Well, the formal method for sampling was snowballing, which is I basically found a bunch of listservs. I sent out an email invitation. I got maybe 40 responses from people, of which 30 of those folks dropped. But it was great because the participants were just incredible and very different. It was qualitative research, and the people who have, their reservations about qualitative research, what qualitative research does do effectively is build a rich map of the possibilities of a terrain. It does not go deep into measuring the terrain, but it maps the possibilities. It maps the area.
Like a sample. Yes, a rich sample.
Yes. So it provides the context for quantitative research to go more deep in. So because this area has not really been questioned in terms of AI, it was necessary to do qualitative research first to really set a scene of what is going on here.
Because it's so new.
Yeah. And because it's so global, AI is not a local thing yet.
Yes.
It is a very global thing. It's used in a very global way and developed in a very global way. We have chips coming from this country, coders in this country, human reinforcement from that country. It's
more than the auto industry, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps. Wow. So that was the question. So then how many people did you get and how did you talk to them?
So 10 people, all virtually via Zoom.
Okay.
It was Zoom. And the interviews ranged from 20 minutes with some people to over an hour and a half with some people. The participants had control over how much time they wanted to spend, what questions they did want to answer, what they did not want to answer, all of that, giving the agency, or rather recognizing the agency that participants have to express what they do and do not want to. But basically, to the question of asymmetrical knowledge, there is a huge knowledge curve involved in just being a Wikipedian, because there's a whole governance culture, governance framework, and kind of way of going about being on that site, that if you want things done at a big scale, whether that means moving pages or building up projects or organizing consensus on certain ways of discussing certain topics, such as scientific topics, news topics, all that stuff. So much. You have to know the committees. You have to know the way to get your argument across. You have to, there's a huge
politics behind bureaucracy again.
Bureaucracy and knowledge. An area that I'm getting more interested in, which is called tacit knowledge.
Tacit.
What is? Which is this idea of tacit knowledge comes from things you experience. It doesn't come from text that is readily accessible to everybody. It doesn't come from culture that is handed down. It comes from merely the things that one experiences and builds and accumulates knowledge of through experience.
Through perception,
through sense-making, through narrating one's involvement in certain things. That's tacit knowledge. It's not objective knowledge. It can be subjective knowledge. It can inform these two traditions of objective and subjective knowledge, but it is unique in that it is embodied and experienced and lived. So that's tacit knowledge. So that is one aspect that I was interested in with this research, which is, how does that inform this attempt to make common knowledge, right? We don't really think of Wikipedia as a human project, but it is a very human project of people who are interested in very particular things.
And they don't get paid, or do they?
They usually don't get paid, but there are certain, like for Hollywood and stuff, there are agencies that outsource
Wikipedians
who know how to make articles. Like if if you find, just to give a Hollywood example, if a new project has been announced in Variety or the Hollywood Reporter or Deadline, one of the top Hollywood news sites, before that article even comes out, you will see a Wikipedia page of the movie, the cast, the production, the marketing, all that.
I see. Okay.
Because these organizations are great at doing that.
Meaning, and of course, they're starting to cement the road. Like, for example, Google scrapes that, and everyone scrapes Wikipedia, and then they're already part of the models. And then when the movie comes out, it would be easier to go viral, to sell more tickets.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that's kind of, I was interested in exploring the personal aspect of Wikipedia. So there is one participant who has been active in documenting plant life in Western Australia. And they would make it a point to actually go out into the wilds of Western Australia and photograph it and upload that photograph to Wikipedia. And to upload any media to Wikipedia, you have to prove copyright, you have to prove originality, you have to give up. It's very detailed stuff. And this person would discuss how they went to a kind of garden one time to take the picture, but it wasn't the actual picture of the actual plant. So they had to create a new variety of the plant that was not previously known by botanists. And so that's an interesting example of Wikipedia, by being this catalog, is actually discovering new differences and new things. It's, maybe you'd say, well, plant life's not significant. This is just some, niche project where. But knowledge is knowledge.
Like if no university has done that and they did it, that means something.
Yeah. And there's also a big challenge we talked about earlier about Wikipedia is not perfect. One of the constraints that Wikipedia has, which has virtue and limits, is it relies on citations from published news and books of reputable nature. One of the challenges of that is in the non-Western world, where their documents and their histories have not only been destroyed, but they have been misnarrated by imperial narrators and the interests that corporations and all that have of storytelling their lives in a certain way.
I suppose there are like millions of lawsuits for millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah. And also especially indigenous cultures, they have historically been oral traditions of knowledge. They have not been written traditions of knowledge.
That's true.
So Wikipedia, as somebody who practices Indian classical music, we are entirely an oral tradition of passing direct information directly, where it's not just about passing a fact to a fact.
Mm-hmm.
The education system is that you raise the individual to be in the almost living history of the work that has been produced.
Wow.
So it is not just about knowing a text and a tune. It is about
embodying
it's about embodying the spirit of that creativity.
Wow.
And being a living kind of artifact for that.
How did you get involved in music? Like, how is that passion? Where did it come from?
So both my parents are huge into music. My father was not allowed to learn music when he was young because of the typical attitude of, music doesn't feed you. You need to do something practical and whatever. He's extremely artistic. My mom, unfortunately, she passed away several years ago, but she was a huge artist, jewelry designer, painter, very creative.
Wow.
The most creative person I've met, and I've been privileged to meet some incredible artists. And they both just lived and breathed creativity and ideas.
That is great.
Thinking. So I got exposed to a lot of music when I was young, but unusually, I immediately took to Indian classical music.
Indian classical,
yeah. Which is like if you're playing Michael Jackson, Bach, and
you recorded some of this?
Yeah. So if you go to
is it online? Okay.
My YouTube channel is AARSHIN K. Where I'm gonna link it.
Yeah, I'll link it
in the description.
Yes, man.
I've not been good at promoting my musical style.
I'll help you, man. You met the right guy.
I'm just a shy person by nature. I like to do the work. I don't like to talk about doing orders.
Yeah. But can I help with that?
I appreciate it. So yeah, that's been like 99% of my mind is there, and then the remaining 0.5% is in media and ethic.
My God.
And then the other 0.5% is in food.
Yeah, because we've spoken about food, and you know a lot. Yeah, the restaurants we've been to. Man, so that's your main interest. Then your PhD should be related to music, my friend, because we were talking about PhD, man. At AARSHIN, I have to tell you, you have to do a PhD. I told you that the other day, and I'm going to tell you again, because man, you have a brilliant mind, and you gotta go there. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna take time, but I mean, what would be your argument for not doing it related to music? If 99% of your passion is there, how would you?
To not doing it with music, I will say the scholarship around Indian classical music is not developed and diverse enough in a way where I could write something that I would be interested in.
Okay.
I would have to go to a level that is more, it's like you can't, if you want to put the flag at the top of the Empire State Building, you can't do that because we're still working on the foundation. It's that kind of thing.
And you wouldn't be interested in working on the foundation?
No, because it's very clerical. It's like we have to get the cement, and then we have to get this. I see. It's like, no, I want to sew the cloth and make the flag pretty and take a picture and all that. That's what I would love to do. I would love to do a PhD along media ethics and psychology and AI and all that stuff, but simultaneously publish academic work related to music.
Yeah, because I mean, of course, you're ready to do the PhD in Indian classical music, but you could use some of that ideas and passion. You could weave them in, or
very much so,
or publish.
Yeah, publish. So one project I've been working on for about the last decade, and I'm trying to pick it up now, is a project called Surasik. Surasik, Surasik. Rasik in Sanskrit means connoisseur. And so Surasik is like an elevated way of saying connoisseur. It's a media project around documenting the expertise, life stories, narratives, and personal histories of maestro musicians from the classical arts of India. I've had the privilege of interviewing many, but I myself am not in the interview. I take myself out, and it's just a monologue with the viewer that the artist has. And so I'm building that out, hosting concerts of these folks. And
in Seattle.
I did one in the Bay Area. I would have loved to do some here, but the British government is not very keen on giving visas to Americans right now.
Yeah.
So it's okay. We'll do it by then. But part of this project that I'm expanding on soon, given our degree, is thinking about what does AI mean for Indian classical music. And what I mean by that is Western music is very interesting in that it's highly standardized, right? The material, the thinking, and the architecture of Western classical music is very thorough, very mathematical, very logical. That's not the case in Indian classical music. It's scientifically derived, but its philosophy is almost inverted, so it's like Western music, the beauty of the architecture of Western music is the harmonic play and how harmony and disharmony weave in and out of each other. Indian classical music deals explicitly with melody and the harmonics of melody. And it is grounded in subtones, in microtones. Why I mentioned this is when it comes to AI, and if you go to ChatGPT and you ask, how does this Indian classical music scale work? Who is this Indian classical music person? Whatever. The data available of this art form is so not only absent, but it is so compromised that these AI systems are propagating a very accurate version of Indian classical music and perpetuate this misinformation. So my interest is we don't have the power to deal with these big tech companies that are doing.
Have you used those models that produce music? I think there's one called Udio, I think.
I'm not familiar with those, but there are examples of AI being used in Indian classical music to help with the practice and experience of that. But my kind of interest in this is building better data for these systems.
Yeah, because that's the way to do it from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that model because you can tell it to produce, quote unquote any kind of style. But I wonder what would it do in this landscape? It would be probably something completely wrong.
Not only completely wrong, but to your point, some musicians recently said, who I had the chance to interview in the past, they said, oh, AI is not a serious threat to Indian classical music because the human touch is so important. I think that's true.
You've heard that argument.
I think AI will have a hard time replicating the human touch in Indian classical music. But AI will nevertheless have an impress. And that impress should worry everybody.
I see.
Because the beauty of Indian classical music is how it takes humanness and goes to the sublime, or how it goes to the epic refinement of human capabilities. Like there's a story of, everybody knows Ravi Shankar, Pandit Ravi Shankar, the great sitar player who taught George Harrison of the Beatles the sitar, and is one of the great communicators of this art form. So he would tell the story of, he would go on stage with his percussionist, and at the beginning they would tune the instruments, and they're very hard to tune instruments. It requires years and years and years just to be able to tune however many dozens of strings that the sitar has, and that the drum is tuned to the tonic of the sitar. So they would finish tuning after maybe a minute and a half, and the audience in the West would break out in applause. And then Ravi Shankar would say to the audience, if you like the tuning so much, wait till you hear the actual words and they hear them. Wow, so it's just an example of the, again, high learning curve for things geared towards excellence. Our AI doesn't really deal with that level of reality yet.
Are there Indian classical music concerts in London, for example? I'm sure there are. I would love to go to one.
Yeah, there's a very lauded festival that happens in either the Barbican Center or Queen Elizabeth Hall in South Bank, called Darbar, Darbar. They're doing great work. They have an annual festival of some of the great popular musicians. They do a great job, and it's become kind of this coveted site now for jazz. That's really cool.
I'm sure you've thought about working with something related to music. Would you like that?
Yes, I would, but again, the question of how feasible it is and the sacrifices involved and all.
Of course.
My problem is I love thinking, I love music, and I'm trying to figure out that path forward,
Have you read the book Glassbead Game by Herman Hesse?
No.
I think you would love it, man. I think you would love it. It won some awards, and it speaks about a distant future where there is this intellectual game that only intellectuals play, and there's a hierarchy and everything, and it is related to glass beads, and there's different kinds of it's a multidisciplinary game where the more different aspects of different disciplines the more you kind of mix them. And the better you do it, the more points you get and the more prestige you get. And it's a kind of a utopia, dystopia situation. But it began with music. It began with music because one academic understood that music is the one thing that has a deeply human aspect, but also there's a mathematical side, and there's waves and physics, and so that was how it began. But it's also kind of a jab at academia and the ivory tower, all that, and the eloquence, and then what does it mean to mix like 100 different things. But it's a very cool exploration. I think you will definitely enjoy it.
No, and to your point, I think one thing AI does challenge us to do, which is important, is we use the word multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary and whatever.
Yeah.
But really what we're seeing is a collision of so many of these different disciplines that have had their safe spaces, their territories, their, shall we say, parochial, provincial ways of thinking
Destroyed.
And now AI is like, we're breaking down all the borders, whether you like it or not, And so to your point, having that fluency across different ways of thinking, speaking, and expressing, I think is so needed now. And just to talk a little bit about our experience in our degree. So I would have loved to do a PhD that extends our program which is an MPhil or a part-time MPhil called an NST, into the full PhD program. But what I've heard is because our program has been interdisciplinary in nature, that some of the more traditional departments are a little resistant to accepting this multidisciplinary field. And it's interesting to think about that, given the fact that AI is going to charge ahead.
Oh,
It's not going to worry about whether you are ready to have a PhD program or not.
right, true.
I mean, there's a study that got published today by the University of Melbourne, or yesterday, this week.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we were talking. Like,
Yeah.
it's so much happening all the time. It's like,
And this is like I think 46,000 person survey of, however many people. And the big headline, there are multiple big headlines from the study, but one of the big headlines is AI literacy is not keeping up with the spread of AI.
yeah,
And that is worrying from the perspective of AI governance, which is if we cannot get our head around these systems, what does it mean to actually
be in the world.
They control that, account for risk, to account for opportunity, to account for controls. It's a very, I was speaking with our classmate Sen just yesterday about it at lunch, where I wanted to test out this idea with you, which is I think AI at its best is what Schopenhauer had described as genius. So Schopenhauer had said, talent hits a target nobody else can hit.
Yeah.
Genius hits a target that nobody else can see. And I think AI at its best can be something that hits a target nobody else can see. We've seen flashes of that in how AI systems have been able to identify certain cancer treatments and targeted medicine in that way. And that's brilliant stuff, objectively brilliant stuff. I was talking with this about Sen, and he said, that sounds fine, but remember the risk aspect, which is at the end of the day, the data involved in this, the use of resources involved in this, the systems and the systems engineers and the cybersecurity folks required to make all this work. There is so much risk and uncertainty involved surrounding all of this that even if AI is the panacea that can cure cancer or do this or do that, the risk should not worry us all. It should, but it should create this urgency to really get it right. And we're seeing this attitude instead, this Facebookian, Zuckerbergian attitude, instead of move fast and break things. And we should stop to ask ourselves what will be broken
Oh my God.
if we move fast. That's what I think our degree tried to encourage us to do, which is really ask that question.
Yeah. Well, I have many worries with AI, but one of them is I think there are a whole bunch, a huge list of, I don't know how to call them better than diseases, starting to spread diseases of the mind or mental problems, going back to the connecting with reality, connecting with oneself, connecting with the people around, connecting with knowledge, and we're gonna need a whole lot of new words to understand a whole lot of new doctors.
Oh, yeah, right. And to your point, it's like we were talking about Charles Taylor the other day. This question of selfhood. I don't think the average person recognizes how integral the smartphone is to our sense of selfhood. I remember, I'm old enough, I'm 33 next month. I remember life without the internet. And let me tell you, it was a beautiful thing.
It was
Where you were literally just sitting out in the grass, looking at the sun, just basking in it. And I remember having this memory of, I could see the, Lake Washington in our state and just kind of enjoying the scene. And I remember I had no idea what time it was.
Yeah.
Didn't care whether my parents were worried where I was. Didn't have anything else to do before or after. I was just so present in that moment. And now I catch myself just looking at the phone because I have nothing to do maybe at that time. And that's scary.
But yeah, we don't get bored anymore. This is one reason why I like podcasts. Okay?
Yes.
Here we are. The world is outside, still happening, but we are here. It's a nice moment.
Yeah, it's very aligned.
Yeah. So one last question: what was the best thing from the masters? You know, if you could say one thing to recommend maybe to someone that is looking to study abroad or to, you know, go into a new program, because you've done 2 masters, right?
I would not say doing it at Cambridge was the feature.
Okay.
However, surprising that may be to some folks, I think academia, at the end of the day, is a human enterprise. It's all about the people. And when you talk about the people whom you learn with, your co-students, the people from whom you learn, the professors and the lecturers, and if you're doing original research like I did for my dissertation, the people whom you engage as participants. Without question, the people. At the end of the day, knowledge is cultivated by our interactions with one another. And it's our task to kind of develop posterity or sustainability for that stuff, to benefit the future, to benefit quality of our species and just everything. So without question, number one for me is the people.
Amazing.
It's been incredible.
Amazing. I agree with you. Well, and I hope you come back as often as you can.
Yes.
And we can do this again.
Definitely, I would love to. There's always more to talk about with you.
There's always.
Thank you for the time.
You're always welcome, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Gracias totales por ver este episodio de Sangre y Suerte. Espero te haya gustado. Si conoces a alguien que le interese este contenido, por favor envíaselo. No olvides de dejar un me gusta y un comentario para el algoritmo. Si quieres estudiar filosofía más formalmente, revisa los links en la descripción de este video. Y espero que encuentres lo que estás buscando. Nos vemos por acá. Fuerte abrazo.